My name is Gianni Russo, a.k.a. Carlo, the infamous son-in-law from The Godfather. I'm now known as the Hollywood Godfather, and this is my story.
Before all of the wins in my portfolio, I was a little boy diagnosed with polio. Experimenting with cures, I tried every one. Felt everything in my right, but my left was numb. Walking with a limp, like will I ever run? Once again, or is this it? Am I forever done? Living in the hospital was never fun. Some people were cool, but not everyone. You never know who you're lying in a room with. So I broke a broomstick in half and let it groove with the concrete in the bathroom floor. It had a new tip, stashed it behind the toilet in case I ever had to use it. Cause one day Dolores had a chat with me. Said she got...
Speak softly loud and hold me warm against your heart. I hear your words, the tender trembling.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Hollywood Godfather Podcast. I don't know how many hours we have up, in the hundreds, thank God. And my co-author and my friend, Pat Piccarelli's here.
How you doing, guys and girls and gals and women and ladies?
Oh, you got to include every gender now there is, you know. Trans,
and they and them and us.
Trans and us and who and we.
Yeah.
And we have a very special guest that Pat knows well, and I'm going to give him the honors of introducing him.
Okay, everybody, we are in for a treat. We get a lot of emails on this podcast, people asking me about what did the NYPD used to be like. So I can give some examples, but I by no means have the experience and the some of the situations, in fact, most of the situations that our guest, Ralph Friedman, was in. Now, before I introduce him officially, I want to give you a little background. You know, you've heard the term super cop, I'm sure, before. In fact, there was a movie in the early 80s called The Super Cops. And the word is bandied about, so it becomes useless after a while. It's like calling a football player a hero, you know. But there are super cops on this job. I'm proud to say that I know one of them, and that is our guest tonight. We've been friends for years. I wrote his book. We wrote it together, Street Warrior. That was published several years ago. And this will be the first time for our listeners to see him in person. And it's the first time I'm seeing him in person.
Really?
Really. We did.
That's true.
Well, it's the same experience you and I had. I wrote your book over the phone.
True. Yeah, I shouldn't be shocked like that. That's right. I didn't mean to either.
Oh, Ralph and I had a couple of close calls. I mean, I was going to New York, and then book parties and things got canceled and whatever it was. But anyway, I'm going to get to know him a little bit better than I already do tonight. So without further delay, I introduce you to retired Detective Ralph Friedman, late of the NYPD. Welcome to the show, Ralph.
How you doing, Pat? And Gianni, thank you for having me.
Oh no, man, it's our pleasure. Honor.
You know, we were talking about over the course of several shows. Like I said, people are asking questions. What did your job used to be like?
Well, it was a different world. We were taught different in the academy. The training was different. The people on the street, the atmosphere of the country, and the attitudes, everything was different.
Well, you came on the job about the same time I did, and it was a difference in police work, which was then proactive.
Very proactive.
We got rewarded for going out and looking for trouble. I mean, if there was a problem, if there was a crime to be found, we would actively go look for it. I mean, if you made good arrests, if you had, in fact, if you got in TPF, if you got 3 DUIs in a certain length of time, not you personally, but if you arrested 3 DUIs, you got time off. They rewarded you. You were told to go out there and raise hell. That's a reactive police department, rather a proactive police department. You go there looking for things. Now that's all changed.
Well, we were turned out when we were turned out at roll call. Politicians dictated, not dictated, but wanted, and the police department and the commanders wanted bad guys off the street.
Well, they still do, but they don't want to admit it because they have to play to their constituents.
They have some way of admitting it by tying the hands of the police, and changing the laws.
Well, let's talk about some experiences, some of the things that you went through. I mean, I was on the same job you were, but I mean, some of the experience you had even impressed me and shocked me. Now, there was one particular one, you weren't on the job that long. You and your partner were in an epic gun battle. And you have to understand about gunfights in the 70s and 80s. They were not all that common. Now they're every time somebody shoots or fires a weapon and doesn't mean to hit anybody or draws a gun, it's a story in the paper, intimidation, and you're picking on people. Then it was a common occurrence. I, for one, can't recall ever going on a job, and I've worked where Ralph worked, South Bronx, where I didn't have my gun either out of my holster, in my hand, or at least unlocked and ready to grab it. Try doing something like that now, and you're not going to be on the job.
When we pulled over cars or approached doors, we always had our gun drawn.
Yeah, not anymore. They won't let you do it. Okay, what I want you to tell the listeners is about that particular day when you and your partner, and forgive me, I wrote the book years ago, so I forgot his name, went into that building, and he was wounded to the point where, to this day, he holds the record for blood transfusions. The officer was shot so bad, he took 72 pints of blood to keep him alive. But
Wow.
tell us how that day started.
Well, it started, I was assigned to a court case. I had to go to the Bronx Criminal Court, and I got out early. So what we do is we head back to the precinct. Well, I head back to the precinct, and you get teamed up with a different partner in that 12 noon, and we started patrol. And it was about 2 in the afternoon, about 2 hours after patrolling around. We get a call comes over the air from communications of a burglary in progress. Now, normally we wouldn't pick up these calls because our job was to find crime on our own. But in a busy house, such as the 4-1, you back up to the officers, the uniform officers who respond to that call. So a unit picked it up, and we picked it up as backing them up. But we went to the scene first. And as going to the scene, the call escalated from a burglary in progress to a girl screaming for help. And in that situation, that makes it sound like they were burglarizing a house and the occupant's home. So it's more like a home invasion, right? So we got there first, and we proceeded up the stairs, and it was the top floor. And when we got up to the top floor landing, we saw one of the doors of that floor opened about 6 to 8 inches and damage to the door frame. So we proceeded into the apartment slowly, but we heard a girl screaming, right? So now we had to proceed a little faster. But when we got in there, it was 2 in the afternoon, but it was pitch black. There was sheets and curtains and blankets, everything covering all the windows. It was totally pitch black. And we didn't know exactly the layout. So we were going by hearing the girl screaming. And what we found out a little later was that we entered into like a living room area. There was a kitchen off to a left, and straight back the narrow hallway was a bathroom facing you and a doorway off to the right. But we didn't know this layout when we were there in the pitch black and hearing the girl screaming. We both had our guns drawn. We were shoulder to shoulder, and we went into this hallway. And the hallway wasn't, very wide, like maybe 4 feet wide. And all of a sudden, a man jumped out from that right side doorway, which we later learned was the bedroom. And we couldn't even see him because it was pitch black, and we saw a muzzle flash. He just opened fire on us 3 feet away. We returned fire, and the place started lighting up from like strobe lighting from all of us firing. And I saw my partner get hit. He was to my left. And as he was going down, he opened fire, and I returned for the muzzle flash too. And it had this strobe light effect, and the bullets were ricocheting in this hallway. Later found out that my partner took 5 direct hits and 2 ricochets. And the perpetrator tried to run past me, and he ran right into me. I grabbed him. He had no shirt on. And I grabbed him by the skin of his trap, holding him in position there. And I had 1 round left, and I fired that when it was pressed up against him, and I shot him right in the heart, killing him there. And my only concern at that point was my partner who went down. I didn't feel that I got shot or anything, but officers were flooding in, picked up the radio and called the 1013, officer shot. But officers that were responding to that burglary already were there because they were only seconds behind us. And we decided immediately the best course of action was to carry Officer Calunga down the stairs, 5 flights, and get him into a radio car. And while this was occurring, all units called for highway to block all the intersections, even though a radio car goes there with light and sirens on. But they closed off every intersection, so they didn't even have to slow down to make sure. And that went right to Jacoby Hospital.
But you, Ralph,
yeah.
Let me interrupt you for a second. You had a hard time getting off that block.
Yeah, I was going to get to that. As they got him into the car, and we had all these radio cars blocking off intersections, the cars that responded to Fox Street made it difficult to get the car out that was holding him. He had to bang into a few cars, bumping them out of the way to get onto a street that was a clear road to get to the hospital. You know, he had to get to Bruckner Boulevard, you know, and there was some hitting of cars going on to move radio cars out of the way. Those guys were scrambling to the cars, but, you know, all the cars look alike, and everybody, it was a massive response. Once I put it over the air, an officer was shot. So we get to the hospital, we get him in there, and he went in right into a surgery, obviously. And he needed 72 pints of blood, which, you know, your body only holds about, I think, somewhere between 6 and 8, or maybe 9.
That's why I was wondering when he said that earlier, because your body don't even hold that much blood.
Yeah, it was pouring out as they're operating. They're pumping it into it. That's why it made medical history. And the mayor was notified of this, and he took a helicopter. He had the aviation unit fly him over to Jacoby Hospital and landed on a street, Pelham Parkway. And he wanted to talk to me, and before I was going to hold a press conference in the hospital. And it was Mayor Lindsay, and he was.
I love that mayor. You know, he was a great mayor.
He was definitely concerned about the office and my partner's condition and what shape I was in before I went on the press conference.
That's a great story.
So, you know, that incident alone is something, of course, that you'll never forget. But you had similar incidents after that.
I have many shootouts that I remember distinctly.
Well, as I recall, you were in 14 shootouts. You killed 4 people, correct?
I was in 15 shooting incidents. 2 of them were with dogs, 13 with people. And I shot 8 perpetrators, killing 4 of them.
There you go. I lose track of all these numbers, you know. But anyway,
I love the story, though. Jesus.
With the Mayor Lindsay incident, it was not uncommon then for the mayor, whether it be Lindsay or who preceded him, to respond that way to a police shooting, even though.
They've always done.
Yeah, they always. The
police commissioner and the mayor.
To take a helicopter and land it on the street. I mean, you know, thinking about under what circumstances would that happen now? And the answer to that would be never. If the mayor shows up, well, I can't speak for this mayor. I can only speak for the last few mayors. For them to even show up they think is something that they have.
You know, it's such a different world today, Pat.
Yeah.
I mean, if you see the last police commissioner who was sworn in by today's mayor, Eric Adams, was sworn in under a mural of cop killers and terrorists.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
You know, it's a different. I don't know how the good guys became the bad guys, you know? And then you get guys like George Floyd, they're making statues and making heroes out of career criminals.
I can't believe that. I mean, that
Well,
in
It's
itself.
unbelievable.
You know, the house, the station house, the precinct where Ralph worked is infamous. Maybe you can call it famous, whatever adjective you want to use. There was a movie made about that precinct called Fort Apache, the Bronx, with Paul Newman in the 1970s. But it was called Fort Apache for a reason. You have to picture the area. I mean, I worked there, Ralph worked there, and I tried to do the best I could describing the
You did the best job anyone could do, Pat.
the desolation in that area. If you ever saw pictures of London after the Blitz,
It looks like pictures of Ukraine today.
yeah, exactly. That's what the South Bronx looked like. It was just like another world. You know, I mean, the South Bronx was another planet unto itself. But
There's some actual real footage that was rented when I was making the TV series Street Justice the Bronx, and it's sprinkled throughout that series, which is available on Amazon.com now.
Before we get to that, let's get the listeners accustomed to the area and what you were working in. Tell everybody how the 4-1 precinct got the name Fort Apache.
Well, it got the name around 68 or 69. The precinct was under such severe attack, and this was way before precincts were ever attacked or even thought of being attacked, of people attacking the police station. And they were throwing bricks and bottles. Then they started to burn the radio cars and stuff in. This was never occurred. And there was a desk officer who was a very well-known desk officer named Gittens. And
Lloyd.
Lloyd Gittens.
Lloyd Gittens.
Very tough cop, very knowledgeable, very tough cop, very good boss. He was a lieutenant at the time. And he would scream at cops and put you in your place, but he never would hurt a cop. He was actually a great boss, right? And he was on the phone while the precinct was being attacked, and he was calling in a borough 13, which means requesting more cops out of the area, from out of the area that was covered by a few precincts. And the borough asked him, how bad is it? How bad is it? And he said, it's like Fort Apache over here. And that name, when the officers heard it, it just stuck. And it stuck all the way, for like over 50 years now.
Let me be devil's advocate just for our audience. Why was that one particular precinct so under attack and nobody could do anything by then?
A lot of criminals lived in that precinct. It was a violent area to begin with, racked with robberies. It was the highest homicide rate, crazy robberies and all kinds of incidents that went on there. Like it was like the outpost of the Bronx, it was the outpost of the city. It was, we led the city in everything in those years. Robberies, rapes, assault, stabbing, shooting.
When we worked that precinct, we had a patrol with our helmets on, because you'd be walking down the street and people would be throwing stuff at you. And I mean, toilet bowls.
Got the nickname of getting airmail.
There you go. I mean, you expect maybe, what people would do is they would get a cachet of bricks, bottles, anything that they can throw, and they put it on a roof, call it a phony call.
Yeah. And
then here we come, and I was a TPF, we would, back people up, but we were on foot, and we had to wear our helmets. And I tell you, and I would expect, bricks, bottles, that was just a normal day in the 4-1 precinct. But a commode narrowly missed me by about a foot. A freaking toilet bowl.
That's
and if that thing would have hit me on the head, I don't think I'd be here doing this podcast, helmet or no helmet.
No.
I mean, that
would have been a hell of a way to go.
Hello. Yeah.
You ask what makes Fort Apache different than anywhere else in the city. It was just surreal. To go in there every day and work is surreal. You never stop.
Well, to give you a couple of examples.
Yeah.
First of all, they had sector cars that went up to O and P, and each, you get sector A, sector B. It went all the way up to O and P. We had the most radio cars covering a small area of land. and we had the most cops. We had 425 officers assigned to the 4-1. And on the third floor, they had 200 TPF, which Pat worked out of. That's 625 men in one precinct. And that ain't counting all the other units that worked in the borough or the division poaching, which means they were always coming over to the front to make their arrests and get their activity because there was so much going on. The place was like, it was like a packed subway car of crime going on all the time. Everywhere you went.
Give everybody an idea of the size of the precinct. So you're in a sector. I worked in a lot of precincts.
It was like a 2-mile square. A 2-mile square.
Yeah. That's the precinct.
The precinct is 2 miles square.
If you came in for a 4 to 12 tour on a Friday or Saturday night, you would get the car, the radio car, when I started out as a rookie in 1970. You would get the radio car with the light and siren on, and it's backed up with 20 to 30 jobs that are still like, heavy duty jobs you got to keep going to. But you get the car with the light and siren on, and you would go all night with the light and siren on because that's how busy it was.
The average
from shooting to stabbing, from stabbing to homicide, from homicide to robbery, to store being held up, people being mugged. It just went on and on.
And how long did that go on, though, that spree of crime?
What's that?
How long did that spree of crime go on?
Well, it went on to approximately 1975, because then they started, it was so bad that landlords were abandoning their buildings, and the junkies were using them as gang headquarters, shooting galleries, and ripping out the plumbing. And it started to dwindle down because then they had to burn everything down. And then it slowed down because people moved out. There were no buildings left. It was really bad.
Wow.
Now, an average size, just to give you an idea of the patrol size, the precinct's 2 square miles. Now, an average precinct, let's say in Queens, you do have a sector that you're responsible for. You're in a car. It can go a mile or two in either direction that you have to patrol in any one given tour. And in the 4-1, if I'm not mistaken, you got like 3 square blocks.
Yeah.
And
that's how much coverage there was, and it still wasn't enough. And you're working, and you're hearing gunshots, and you're responding, and then there's other gunshots in another direction. It was like the Wild West.
Wow.
You started to get a reputation, obviously, with the shootings and the arrests. I mean, to this day, your record stands. There's 6,000 arrests. I mean, it's unheard of. But,
well, I made over 2,000 in my name alone.
Yeah.
And then I made over like 4,000 assists, helping other officers bring people in, or helping them on the street. And then I made 105 off-duty arrests.
I know people that go through their entire careers and they'll make 105 on-duty arrests.
That's right.
You got involved in everything.
I was busy. Well, it's also, there was a lot of components that made that up. First I was gung-ho, and it was also the way I looked with the tattoos and the muscles and the T-shirt and tank tops and motorcycle. I mean, that also helped my career. And when I was off duty, they didn't think I was a cop on duty, no less off duty. So guys were offering me guns and drug sales. And I also was lucky to be in places where things were occurring. I made off-duty arrests anywhere from larcenies all the way up to a double homicide.
Wow.
Let's hold it up there, Gianni. Let's go to a commercial and make some money.
We'll be right back. And we know where you live, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Corleone Vodka on March 9th was picked as the best vodka for martinis in the world by the Robb Report. By calling 518-713-4050 or 518-220-9463, it could be shipped directly to your house. The finest vodka in the world by Robb Report. All right, we're back.
Okay, there came a time, Ralph, in your career where you started to get a reputation. These bad guys.
I got a reputation pretty quickly because I was pretty quick with my hands, and I wouldn't let any perpetrator or person on the street disrespect myself or an officer. We always gave respect. If you give respect, you get respect. But there were a lot of guys on the street. There were tough guys on the street. There were gangs on the street, people that wanted to fight cops. But they got their due, you know. Not like today, they abuse police officers. And, with that incident about 2 years ago, they started throwing water on officers. Today, they fight officers at the throw of a hat, you know. They would fight officers. I mean, that wasn't uncommon, but they knew they were going to get their due, you know.
There also came a time when you were the target of a hit. You were going to get murdered, and you weren't totally unaware of it.
Yeah, that's.
Tell that
Want me to
story.
go and start from that from the beginning?
Yeah.
Well, the part with that was I was dating this girl, right, that I met, really pretty Spanish girl, and we were dating for a little while, and it got to the point where we were going to go, we were going to have sex. So she invited me to her house, and we had it set up, and I wound up making an arrest that was going to tie me up, right? So I told her, we didn't have cell phones and stuff. It was hardwire phones. And I told her I'm going to be tied up, and she was very disappointed. And she kept calling at the precinct. And I said, I'm stuck. I got to vouch this. I got to take him to court. I got to process this. And she was real upset. And I said, well, I'll see you in a day or two, my next night off. And the next day I come into work, right? And we're driving around, me and my partner, and the squad boss gives us a 10-2. We had a 10-2 is report to the precinct with. And being that we're detective, we had to report to his office, right? And I had no idea what it was. We go upstairs, get back to the precinct, proceed upstairs, and we're walking into the office, and we see two guys in suits in the office with the boss. So right away, your mind goes, it's internal affairs, IAD is there. And so we get there, and the boss turns to my partner and says, you can go back on patrol, right? They just wanted to see me. So my partner heads out, direct order from the boss, got no choice. And the squad boss sits me down and says, and he introduces me, and it's a detective, and I think it was two detectives or a detective and a lieutenant from Intel Division. It's an Intel Division. And he says, yeah, do you know this girl, Lucy? And I said, yeah. I'm like, my head's spinning now. And they said, did you have a date with her last night? Now my head's really, how do they know these things? It's like only 24 hours early, right? And I said, yeah. And they said, well, she had 2 or 3 guys in a closet in her apartment, and knowing you were going up there, and they were ready to kill you.
Wow.
And like, my head's spinning. And I catch my breath there, and I say, what's going on, He said, well, she's a stepsister of a guy you killed like 9 months ago or 8 months ago. And that was a separate incident. That wasn't the one I killed in the story I just told. There was another shooting, which I'll get into. But this was my girlfriend was going to have me assassinated.
Wow. Did they arrest her?
Back to the incident where me and my partner made an arrest, right? And it was a purse snatch. So we got the guy in the precinct, and it was near the end of our tour, right? So I took the arrest, and my partner went home because it was the end of tour, and he went home, and I was going to process the arrest and take it down to central booking. So while I'm doing the paperwork and processing this arrest, a guy comes in to the precinct, which was one of my CIs, a confidential informant. And, there's a lot of range of a CI. You rate them, and there's a range of like from 1 to 10. And if your guy's a 1, it's a nothing. But if you got a guy that rates something 8, 9, or 10, that means he's giving you information, and 8 times out of 10 or 9 times out of 10, the guy's information's on the money. So this guy comes in, and this guy's like my best CI. I mean, he's like a 10. Everything he tells me pans out, right? So he tells me he's got a guy selling a gun. So I proceed to tell my boss. I go in, I say, listen, I'm processing an arrest, but I got a CI here who's my good CI, and he's telling me he's got a guy selling a gun. We got to act on it. So the boss says, I'll be your partner on this case, right? He says, you take control, and the squad boss was a sergeant. He says, I'll be your partner. So I said, okay. So we get the information. We decide that he's going to meet this guy. He has a time already. We tell the guy, you're going to go up there, supposed to meet on a rooftop. We tell him, you go there, and we'll be watching you from another rooftop of buildings that are connected. So we go to the beginning of the block. We climb up the fire escape. We don't go in the front. We figure out a way to get to the back unseen. We climb up the fire escape, and we're going to watch this transaction go down from a few roofs down. And the plan is we'll move in when the CI has possession of the gun. Figure it's in safer hands, and that'd be the best way to handle this deal, right? So we get up in position. He goes up there, and right away when he gets to the roof, and we got position, we got eyes on it, we see two things go wrong right away. The first one is that there's two perpetrators on the roof, not just the one he was supposed to meet. The second thing we see is that it's not a handgun. He's got a long arm. He's got a 30-30 hunting rifle, right? So we still say we'll go with the same plan, me and my boss, and we'll watch until he gets hold of the gun. We figure it's in safer hands, and then we'll move in, right? So we stick to that plan, and right away, that goes south. The perpetrator, before he sells him the gun, wants to prove to him that it's an operable gun. And he starts leaning over the roof and starts firing this thing indiscriminately like a sniper.
Wow.
So we have no choice but to move in. Now we're like 4 or 5 roofs down. They're all connected by like a 2-foot or 2.5-foot parapet where you jump over. And that's, the difference of each building. So we start running that way, screaming, police, freeze, right? And now the guy turns the rifle on us and lets one go. And the CI, smart enough, he hits the deck. He just goes down on the floor flat, right? And the other perpetrator, who we don't know who he is or what he has, he runs behind like this chimney or kiosk type of thing. Looks like a chimney, and it's on the roof. So we're running towards the guy who fires at us. We open up him, and I shoot him 2 times. Him in the hip, that spins him around, and I shot him in the ass. He goes down, drops the rifle. We get over to the scene, and we see the guy is down. The perp is down from 2 wounds. We kick the rifle away, right? And the boss screams. The boss kicks the rifle, screams to me, "Go get the other guy." So I proceed over this, and now I just fired all 6 shots. So I pull out another gun, right? I always carry 2 guns while working. And I'm going around this bend where this kiosk chimney type thing is, that I can't see him. And I turn the corner, and right there he is in front of me. And he's got the knife raised, as you can see what I'm doing with the knife raised above his head, and he's going to stab me in the head when I turn. My finger tightens on the trigger. Before I can even pull it, I hear a shot go off, and my partner shoots him in the back, right? He goes down, and now the boss screams, "Get the rifle." So I go to cross this guy to get back, and the guy who my partner just shot starts to get up with a knife to stab me in the stomach. And I shoot one, I fire around, shooting him in the stomach, killing him right there. And then I proceed to go and get the rifle and secure that. And
so 2 guys are dead already.
What's that?
2 guys are dead already.
No, the first guy didn't die.
Oh, okay. All right.
The second guy with the knife died. Him I killed immediately. The other guy, like I said, I shot him in the front hip, and then he spun around and shot him in the ass. He survived. The guy that I killed with the knife, who my partner shot first and I shot second, he died. And that was this girl's stepbrother.
Oh.
Oh, okay.
That's why the girl wanted me killed. She made it purposely that I would meet her, we would talk, pick her up. She dated me a few times, and I was supposed to go up to her apartment, and she was going to have me assassinated.
You had no idea.
No ideas. This came out. She played it for a while.
Yeah.
We went to, we went to the movies, went out to dinner a few times, we hung out. It just escalated to that point where now we were going to get together physically. And I went up to her house. I was going to go up to her house, and that's where it was playing.
Thank God
You know,
that
there's
happened.
what no police officer wants to go through is have his partner, somebody that he works with, killed in a line of duty. And we have one episode at the end of the book where Ralph discusses what he went through and the race to get to Kennedy Airport to get the perp off a plane before he fled the country.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, let's go through that. I mean, it's a horrendous thing to have to relive, but
Well, I was off duty at the time, and my unit, and this was a guy I was partners with, but then we switched partners around, and he was working with another officer. His name was Kenny Mann, and he was working with a guy, Irwin Black, and I was off duty, and I heard on the radio about a shooting in the Bronx, an officer shot. Then I heard he was in the 4-1 precinct, and I was getting ready to go down there, right? And then my phone rings, and it was my squad boss calling us in. And he told us to come into the precinct. We raced down there. His name was Sergeant Battaglia, was the head of our anti-crime unit, who called me. And we get down there, he tells us Kenny Mann was shot and that he was killed. And he assigned people to do all different assignments. And my assignment was to take 3 officers. I was driving and go to the airport and stop the plane. And I made it from the 4-1 to Kennedy Airport in about 12 to 14 minutes, which is, it's unheard of. We went through the toll booths. They had toll booths then, like I can do now, overhead cameras. The toll booth guy was almost sucked out of the booth. I went through there. It was like a vacuum almost. And we got out there. In those years, you could drive onto the tarmac. We drove right up to the planes and ran up. There wasn't the plane. He wasn't on there. He was later found on a roof, hiding by officers, But they were going on a rape case. It was a rape and robbery of a girl, a very serious rape case. And when they got into the hole, they went into an alleyway, a courtyard going into a building where this perpetrator was supposed to be. And it wound up, see how people, like Pat described before, how guys wait for you on the roof and stuff. Well, there were guys on the roof, except this time they had guns. And they opened up on the officers, and they shot Kenny Mann from the rooftop. And Irwin Black tried to save Kenny's life by having his fingers in the holes that he took the bullets in, but he couldn't stop him, from dying.
Wow.
that took me a lot. I write fast, as you two guys can attest to. When I got to that chapter, I had a very difficult time getting through that chapter, and what you went through. I mean, all the time I spent TPF. In fact, all the time TPF existed, we lost one cop, and that was at Columbia University. He got dragged away on making a car stop. Guy rolled up a window and dragged him for like 10 blocks and killed him. But to witness something like that and the adrenaline pumping, driving all the way to Kennedy Airport, it didn't stop for hours. It just kept on going.
It was a terrible time. Any time we saw an officer shot, or you respond to the hospital to give blood, or that's the only time it makes you think for a minute that it could have been me. And when otherwise you're going full speed ahead, but you stop and you think and you say, it's such a terrible thing to see an officer, because it's so easy. It could be any officer, or myself.
You had an illustrious career, but people probably think he probably spent 30 years on the job. Who's going to make all these arrests? Where did he get the time? How many years did you actually put in?
No, I actually only did 14 years.
Tell us how your
career came to an abrupt end.
Tell us how your career ended.
Well, I just got back from vacation, and I did a motorcycle trip with a few guys and my brother. We just came back from Virginia Beach, and I went into work, and I was still vibrating. You know, I used to do most of the driving. I probably did 90% of the driving. So I let my partner drive. Not that it was full, but we were patrolling around, and about 9:30 that night, we got a single 1013, an officer needing help. It was called because it was being called in by the officer himself. So you always have a tremendous response and a very quick response when you get a 1013, even if it's over 911 or from CU. But this was from an officer himself. But you always have a quick response because, you know, you don't know if it's real or not. But we were responding, and we were driving west, and we were going to get to the end of the street and make a left to go south. Before we could make that left, there was a radio car. We were on an unmarked car, and a radio car being driven by a rookie. Not that it was fault either, but he was heading from the south going north. So before we could turn to go south, he T-boned me. Never touched the brakes. He needed 30 feet of rubber in those years for the accident investigation squad to tell how fast the car was going. They couldn't even tell because there was no rubber, never touched the brake. And at that top speed, he probably doing about 75, hit
Whoa.
me right in the door, right in the hip there.
You know what, Ralph, before you go on, you spent a horrendous amount of time in the hospital, and we'll touch on that
I was
in a
there
second.
almost 3 months.
But do you think that your sirens drowned each other out?
Oh, definitely. The sirens and there was other sirens in the area too. I'm sure those two sirens, ours and theirs, coming into that intersection. Plus, we don't know who had the light, but there was a lot of contributing factors. The accident occurred.
How badly were you hurt?
I broke 23 bones. I shattered my right hip in 100 pieces. And I broke my pelvic, left, right, upper, and lower.
Jesus.
All the officers were hurt, but they were treated and released within 12 hours. And I got stuck in the hospital 2.5 months.
Wow.
Then you catch a lot of stuff in the hospital. I didn't get a surgery. I didn't get any stitches. I didn't get any surgery because I had a lot of muscle on my body at the time. And what they did was they had me in traction, but they took me out every day to see if any of the bone, any of those chips, the whole crack of the hip, if any of the chip would have fell into the socket, then I would have needed a total hip replacement. The doctor said I might last 2 years, or I might last 20. And as of this podcast, I just hit 39 years on August 1st.
I like
God
to say
bless.
that you're
Wow.
indestructible, but I don't want to say that because
You wanted to say
shit happens.
what?
Okay,
Yeah.
so you put
He
all
wanted to
this
say
time-
you're
and then-
Yeah,
indestructible.
I
They had to
wasn't too indestructible there. I've been lucky to dodge bullets and perpetrators, and the ironic ending to this whole thing is I got hurt by my own guys.
Wow.
They did what the perpetrators, all those perpetrators I ran into, couldn't do.
So obviously you retired then.
Well, then that's what put me out. They put me off on a disability because there were certain things I would never be able to run and chase
Right.
perpetrators again. Wouldn't be able to do the job correctly.
So
And it took me a long time to be able to walk. I left the job in a wheelchair.
Wow, that's amazing. And when did you get your mobility back?
Well, I was 3 months in the hospital. I spent a few months in a wheelchair. Then I went to crutches. And during the crutch time and stuff, I had to do therapy. I would say it took me well over a year before I could walk around.
Wow.
hell of an accident.
Yeah.
Okay, so you retire and you had a television series.
Yes. Actually, it was thanks to you also. While you were writing the book, there was some, before the book was actually published, there was some promotion about it. And a girl going to work, I forgot if I think she was on a bus or a train, probably the bus, but she was a producer that worked for a production company. She read the, about the book. And when she got into work, she told her producers, her bosses, that we got to get into contact with this guy. And they started doing a show about me, and they pitched it to a few channels, and Discovery picked it up. And we had one season, 6 episodes, and it came out on Discovery. And then during this, after 3 episodes, it was picked up by ID, which I think actually hurt me because there was a lull in between, and I lost the momentum. And then it came out on D, and now it's actually on Apple TV. It's on demand and Amazon Prime.
What's the name of the show?
It's called Street Justice: The Bronx.
Rumor has it, Ralph, that you're doing some modeling. Is that true?
And that's true.
Yeah.
I've done a few things.
Yeah.
I did. I was a model for a new company. It just came out. It actually, I don't even know if it's fully out yet, but I did the modeling for their sweatshirts and T-shirts on a blue line that they're going to have within this company, which is called Feast. And you can follow it on Feast 2022 on Instagram. And I've also done some technical advising. I was lucky enough to get involved in the Many Saints of Newark, which was a prequel for The Sopranos. And I did 4 scenes in there, and I got my name's in the credits. And I taught the main actor how to shoot a guy. I don't know how they figured out I had experience in that, but they did. And I set up some gambling scenes and stuff with Tony Sirico I worked with, who wasn't in the movie, but he recently died.
Yeah.
And also with Ray Liotta, I helped set up a scene with him. And I met them both and spoke with them, both great guys, by the way. But Ray Liotta passed also.
I know so many guys. I've known 6 gone in the past, In
a short period of time.
Well, yeah, I mean, and some of them I didn't even like. Paul
Savino,
Savino, Jimmy Kahn, they're all dead. Just
I know
recently.
you dealt with most of them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They're all going in a small period of time. It's very, very strange.
And not really old. I mean, Ray was in his 70s,
Really?
70 ain't that old today, though.
I know. I'm 80.
Really?
Hello.
Ray Liotta was
I'm going to
60.
be 70. I'm going to be 74, right behind you.
There you go.
Yeah, Johnny, Ray Liotta was 67.
I know.
Young guy.
I know.
Anyway, Ralph, what is in your future?
Well, one day my goal is, I keep promoting the book and I keep promoting the TV series. I'm hoping one day to get a motion picture. I had a few bites, but they weren't, they weren't the right ones yet. I'm always trying. I always keep promoting.
Well, you have enough stories in you and enough experience to fill several books and a lot of movies.
Yeah, I mean, even a mini series would be amazing. I could see.
Well, we also came into a lot of things that worked against me. We had the COVID worked against me. Then we had the George Floyd and the anti-cop thing and the Michael Brown, the anti-cop sentiment. I had a lot of things working against me in the years following the publication of the book and the TV series.
Well, that's starting to turn around.
Well, I'm hoping things turn around. That's what I'm waiting for.
Well, I tell you, Ralph, past 50 minutes, I mean, just flew by. We usually only do 40, but you have, I tell you, you're quite a guy, and I'm glad we finally got a face-to-face. This is the first step to going out and having a couple of drinks.
Yeah. The funny thing is, I can't see you guys.
Well, the good news...
Thank you, Pat, from the bottom of my heart, Pat. Your book was absolutely fantastic, and I feel it definitely put me on the map. I was known, but not nationally, thanks to your book, You're a great writer, you're a great friend, and thank you very much. And Gianni, I want to thank you for when the book came out, when the off copy, before the book came out, that you did a blurb for my book. I do appreciate that.
Oh, no, please.
And thank you for having me on the show.
No, I think, once this new show that you're taping tonight, we're starting a whole new medium with video and audio. So people are going to get to see you. And I think your character as a person is definitely sellable in the medium. And anything we do, we can help you with it. I mean,
absolutely.
We're doing so much. It's crazy.
I wish you well too, Johnny. I know you're doing great.
Thank God.
Well, I tell you, Ralph, I don't know what I could do, which is probably not much, but Gianni has helped so many people. In fact, we had somebody on the show a couple of weeks ago and Gianni is helping this guy with his career, and that wouldn't have happened without him coming on the show. So, once this show airs, things may happen, and we're here for you.
And Ralph, let me tell you, that's who I am.
I know you are, Gianni. I know.
Everybody's always helped me. Always, people, Ralph. Always, people came to my side and helped me, and I try to do it any way I can. Especially with a story like this. There's not. You just need the right door open. That's all. This is a great story.
Well, I always wanted to write the book. I never had the right connection until I met Pat.
That's great. No, thank God. Thank God I met him too.
By a mutual,
Everything worked. You have what you have. You got your life. You have the book. You've had a TV series. You're doing other things. Now you got to get a little lucky, and perhaps.
Exactly.
Certainly, I'll do anything that I possibly can. But you're going to get a lot of exposure here within the next couple of weeks. So we'll see what happens.
Great. I appreciate it.
No, thank you.
But Pat, you've always helped me over the years when I had to do a speech or write something. You were always there for me, Pat. You don't have to tell me now. I certainly know.
I'm not going anywhere. Well, thank you very much, my friend, for being on the show. We really appreciate it.
It's a great privilege.
My honor and my pleasure.
This is going to open up quite a few people's eyes when they realize how it used to be.
Great.
Yeah, it's got to turn around because, what are we going to do? Revolve all the way back to a caveman or the jungle or what? Decent people have to respect the police, and criminals got to fear the police. That's how the system has to work for civilization.
It's always worked that way. It had to work that way.
I know, but the last 2 years have been devastating.
Oh, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Okay, Ralph, you have a good night. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And really a privilege having you. Thank you.
Thank you, Gianni.
All right.
Thank you very much.
All right. Our audience, well, thank you all. And as Pat and I always say, without you, we have no show. Tell your friends, write the cards and letters. That's how we respond. We get material. As you've heard, numerous shows were created by you and telling us what you wanted to hear, and we did it. Pat, good night, my friend.
Good night, Gianni.
Good night.
If you're feeling sad and lonely, there's a service I could render. I'm the one who loves you only. I could be so warm, so tender. Call me. Don't be afraid, you can call me. Maybe it's late, but just call me.
Thank you for tuning in to the Hollywood Godfather podcast. You can contact Gianni Russo, Patrick Picciarelli, or myself, Megan Horan, with your questions and comments through the contact section of our website, HollywoodGodfatherPodcast.com, which is where you can also subscribe to our weekly newsletter. You can also call and leave us a message at 646-776-3038. Remember to follow us on Instagram at Hollywood Godfather and on Facebook, as well as leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. We'd like to know what you like about what we're doing, what you'd like to hear in the future, and anything else you might suggest to improve our podcast. Most importantly, hit the subscribe button. We'll be back next week with stories of the mob and Hollywood, as well as answers to your messages.
Call me. Don't be afraid, you can call me. Maybe it's late, but just call me. Tell me and I'll be around. I'll be around. Give me a call. When I was 17, it was a very good year. It was a very good year for small town girls and soft summer nights. We'd hide from the lights. I did it my